Okay, welcome to all those who came out in the Jerusalem rain. I'll just tell you, I always mention this when it rains. It was such a wise thing that was said in one of my seminary classes, a young 18-year-old girl. She asked me, she said, why is it, if rain is supposed to be such a bracha and such a simcha, it comes with so many accompanying things that make a person sad and depressed? It gets dark, there's frightening thunder, there's frightening lightning.
And you get sopping wet.
Yeah, and you get sopping wet, correct. So, and especially those of us with eyeglasses, there's no windshield wipers, we get like blinded. So she said, maybe that's Hashem's way of teaching us that even the scary or sad times in our life really contain bracha. That was a very wise thing for a young lady to say. I wish I remembered her name so I could say it bishma. But, okay, so what we're going to see today is dynamite, I guess we'll call it. It's a very, very fascinating concept that's brought in a sefer called the Arugas Habosem. Arugas Habosem was the Rav of Chust. He passed away in 1910. Chust was a major city in Hungary. He was a Talmud of the Ksav Sofer, the Chasam Sofer's son, among others. And this is something he brings in Parshas V'zos HaBrocha about our Parsha. Okay, and we'll explain why. The Gemara in Sanhedrin is the source that Rashi brings down about this strange description of Yaakov Avinu reaching Haran, right? And then, Vayifga b'mokom, right? He hit this place, right? And then he davens. Okay, maybe we'll actually grab a chumash just to give the actual psukim. Okay, so Yaakov went and traveled. Here's the dream. Oh, so here we go. VaYeitzei Yaakov mi Beersheva vayelech Haran. He left Beersheva, he went to Haran. Vayifga b'makom. So to be pogea means like to meet a place, to hit a place, but it's also a lashon of tefillah. It's also a lashon of davening. So what happened? Yaakov Avinu said, could it be that I passed the place that my Avos, that my fathers davened in, meaning Hara Moriah, that I passed it, Efshar shavarti mokom shispalu avoisai v'lo yispadlu al tisham, and I didn't daven there? So Yohiv daitel meheder, it says in the Gemara, he now set in his mind, I got to go back, right? I think I missed that place, I have to go back there. Ubo Hara Moriah likroso, and Hara Moriah came to him. That's his vayifga b'mokom. So the questions that the Arugas Habosem asks are the following. He says, number one, how could Yaakov Avinu miss something like that? Right? I like to read a lot of Hasidic Sfarim. You know, and in those stories, you know, you have the Rebbe's going down the street in the town. He says, wait, there's something special in that house, and some Jew made a wonderful shahakol 200 years ago or something. And he said, here we're talking about Hara Moriah, right, the place of the Akedah, the place of all these things. Yaakov Avinu, right, the Bechir Sheba Avos, he's called, he's going to miss something like that, right? His spiritual antennas, so to speak, could miss that. Number two, we say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does miracles, so to speak, with difficulty. Not meaning that it's hard for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but meaning that he set up the world of Teva purposefully, right? And those are rules which are his Ratzon. And to have to reverse the Teva is not something that's done without a particular reason. So here Yaakov Avinu said, I want to go back there and daven. So why does it have to be a miracle that it comes to him? Let him walk. Right? It's in other words, not as a punishment, but what would be so bad if he would walk? In fact, right, we know that there's a concept of schar halicha, schar psias. The old Talmud Rebbe, Rabbi Yochanan Twersky, he used to live in, he used to live in Beit Vegan, and he was a very atypical Rebbe. He used to like to run to other Rebbes. You know, like he didn't have Shalosh Shudas in his shul. He would go to the Ger Rebbe for Shalosh Shudas.
Somersaults at weddings.
Oh, the somersaults, which is his big avoda. Yeah. So people said to him, and he went even in older age, 75, he would walk from Bayit Vegan to Geula, And he was walking so slow that oftentimes he would get there and Shalosh Seudos was over. So somebody said to him, Rebbe, you can just stay here, have Shalosh Seudos in your shul, make Havdalah, take a taxi there, and you'll get there the same time. He said, you don't understand, the walking is the ikr. So the main thing is the walking, not the getting there. Okay, so therefore you have that question, so why would you take it away from Yaakov Avinu to walk back to Har Moriah? Why do we need a miracle to bring Har Moriah to him? So his answer is the following. We know the Ramban lays this out, that there's an idea of Maisa Avos Siman Labanim, that everything the Avos do is a preparation for what's going to happen to us in future history. Right? Like in last week's Parsha, there's a famous word from the Kotzker that he said, Yaakov Avinu, if we saw the scene where he came in to get the brachas, Yaakov Avinu dressed up in goat skins, right, saying, Ani Esav B'chorecha, and he asked, why did Yaakov Avinu need this? Why did Rivka want him to get it so badly? He was a tzaddik. HaKadosh Baruch Hu would take care of him. He would get brachas in his own right. What did he need? So he said, you have to realize, Maisa Avos Siman Labanim. Yaakov Avinu was thinking long to generations where there would be Jews who would become so distant that they look like Esav, that they almost say, Ani Esav B'chorecha, and he wanted to get a bracha for them. Okay, so when we say Maisa Avos Siman Labanim, this isn't just for the preparation for the immediate generation going into Eretz Yisrael or something. This means all the way down to us, right, is what was being done. So here, he says the following, and this is why it appears in Zos HaBracha. Zos HaBracha is what we read on Simchas Torah, at the end of the whole process of Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Simchas Torah, etc. So he says, Yom Noraim, as every mashgiach and every yeshiva will tell you, and every rav and every shul, are tremendous opportunities. On Rosh Hashanah, you can get your Kabbalah Sol Malchus Shamayim, your Yiras Shamayim for the whole year. On Yom Kippur, which is called Yom HaKadosh, what you can do on that day, right, to reverse anything, everything, to purify, etc. The Simcha of Sukkot and Shmini Atzeres, with that you draw Simcha also for your whole year, to be able to serve Hashem b'simcha, right, and to learn Torah with simcha. Okay, now HaKadosh Baruch Hu looks to all the generations, he said, and he sees later generations, what he calls a dor ani ve'evyon, a spiritually impoverished generation. She'agiu yomim kedoshim elu ve'ein ish sam al lev lehisari sorus amitis. It can happen that those days come, and a person can't really feel much of anything. You don't feel an awakening. You don't feel... Sometimes it can be for an individual. You're going through a hard time in life. Sometimes it can even be... I remember one Rosh Hashanah, I had this terrible cold. Like I'm sitting there sneezing like I don't know what. The person next to me getting all annoyed. And whatever it is can throw you off your game, so to speak. And you didn't really pay attention to what was happening. You didn't really take advantage of what was happening. And it can end up that at this moment, at the end of Simchas Torah, which is when many communities make what's called the Ne'ilas HaChag, Ne'ilas HaChag, which is really trying to lock in all the light that you got from the Chag, all these kind of things, and a person sitting there saying, I messed up this whole period. From Rosh Chodesh Elul until now, I didn't do it. I mean, I said the stuff I did, but I wasn't there. I wasn't there. And that voice in your head says, you missed an opportunity that never comes back, right? That's what they're all yelling sometimes. They'll say, this is one day a year. On Yom Kippur, you must, right? Rosh Hashanah, this is the day of Kabbalah Sol Shamayim. You must. If not, it's only coming back next year. And all these if nots, and the person feels, that's it. I messed up for the year. It's gone. I can't get it back. So he says, the person thinks about that, and therefore, this is what happened in the Parsha. He says, the Maisa of a Siman Labanim, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was Mesavev Sivuvim. He made things happen in the world in a very not normal way, meaning he had Yaakov Avinu miss Har Moriah. He missed it, right? It was gone. And he felt bad. He said, how could it be that I missed that opportunity to daven in the place where my forefathers davened? I got to get back there somehow. And then immediately he was there. Vayifka bo amokum. Kofza har Moria likrasa. So he says, therefore, this is what happens. He says, for all generations, if we take that scenario, a person wasn't there during the Yom Tov period. He said, and you say, I wish I'd been able to focus. I wish I wanted to think about this or to think about that. He says, you can go back there. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will send you the light, right, to enlighten your darkness, even where you are now, right, that you're able to somehow go back there, because this is something of ruchnius. Time is not the iron wall that the world views it as in Judaism, right? We know that there's an idea of a person who does tshuva me'ava, zdonos, things that he did intentionally, nasim kizchuyos, right? You transform the past, those things which are there. Even tshuva itself, the very idea of tshuva itself means, right? The Mesilas Yesharim asks, how is tshuva possible if there's an idea of Hashem having mishpat and something happened? It's done. Time has passed. You did it. So he says that the midas harachamim of HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us time to do that tshuva process. And in the tshuva process, akiras haratzon is considered like akiras hamaisa, meaning the fact that I wish I hadn't done that. I so wish that I hadn't done that. I wish that that hadn't occurred. That actually can undo it. Okay? That is the rachamim which is there. That which people view as something, it's a fact. It's there, it happened. That can be undone. And obviously, again, it can even be turned into a positive. So that wall of time is not as impregnable as people think it is. We also discover that things that past, future, and present are also not as compartmentalized as you think. We know that there's a concept that we call schus avos. Right? We talked about it a little bit last week. And a famous example, it said, why did Sarah live for 127 years? So that Esther, her great-great-great-great-granddaughter, would be able to be queen over 127 kingdoms. Okay? And what that means is the things that the Avos did, right, affect, just like Yaakov Avinu here, affect the descendants. But the Sfas Emes brings the sources that there's also an idea of schus bonim, right? Meaning that something that your descendant will do in the future can be helping you now. Okay, this is very, for example, the Medrash says, in what schus that HaKadosh Baruch Hu split the Yam Suf? In the schus that Am Yisrael will say Oz Yosher every day. Okay, so that means that when you're saying Oz Yosher, you're making Kriyas Yam Suf happen, right, thousands of years ago. That it's tied together in that way. Or another example, the Sfas Emes says that midrabanan, right? It's not as much a mitzvah as the Suda before Yom Kippur. After Yom Kippur, you're supposed to have a Suda. It's based on the pasuk Lech echol b'simcha lachmecha. Go eat joyfully your bread. Shtei b'yein tov yenecha. Drink with a good heart your wine. Ki kvar ratzah Elokim es maasecha. Because Hashem has already desired your deeds. What is that already? This kfar, what is going on? He says it works like this. When you're asking for forgiveness on Yom Kippur, why are you doing it? Because you say, I want to be able to serve you with simcha, with all my heart. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, okay, let's see if you're going to do it. And he looks at your Matzah Yom Kippur. Look at that. He's doing it. And therefore, kvar ratzah Elokim es maasecha. Right? These deeds of eating the bread joyfully and the yayin, so that already goes into the Yom Kippur that was. Right? It is confusing. It is true. Now again, there are parameters in this. Classic one that's written in the Torah itself, again with Chazal's explanation, it says, Botziach ha'asa'om mi Mitzrayim tavdun es Elokim al ha'ar hazeh. when you take the people out of Mitzrayim, you will serve me on this mountain, meaning Har Sinai. Right? So Rashi brings down, Moshe Rabbeinu asked, in what merit can they come out of Mitzrayim? Right? They don't look. Shevach, you got something?
So if we think about eating towards the end of Ne'ilah, we get more food?
It could be. At least if you put it in the right way, you think. It's, no, 100%. So he says, Moshe Rabbeinu said they need a schus, they need a merit to come out of Mitzrayim. So Hashem says, when they come out of Mitzrayim, they're going to serve me on this mountain. Okay, meaning they come out from Mitzrayim in the schus of what they will do. Okay, so once again, this idea of the past and present affecting each other in both ways. The Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, which says, Kol she chachmaso meruba meimaisov, if a person has more wisdom than deeds, ein chachmaso miskayemes. His wisdom will not stand. V'kol shemaisov merubim mechachmaso, but a person whose deeds are more than his chachma, chachmaso miskayemes, his chachma will be established and continue. So Rav Hutner asked, he said, how can a person have more deeds than knowledge? In order to build a sukkah, you need to know Hilchos Sukkah, right? In order to take a lulav, in order to make matzah, you need to know about matzah. So he refers us to Rabbeinu Yonah, who says the following. He says that as soon as a person embarks on the journey of tshuva, let's say, and he wants to learn more, right? He doesn't know so much. He says, I realize I've been doing things wrong. I need to learn more. And as I learn, I want to implement what I'm going to learn. He says, as soon as you've done that, you are then given the koach of all the good deeds you'll do in the future. Okay, now, I almost view it as the Havdil college loans in America, right? A kid graduates high school and he wants to go to college. And college costs a ridiculous amount of money. So the U.S. government looks at this kid and says, you seem to be a smart kid. And probably getting a degree in something in college, you'll be able to earn a nice salary. So I'm going to give you the money now to go to college, right? Based on your future things. Now, this doesn't always work in that case. There are many people who simply can't pay back their college loans and other things like that. It's not so easy. But here, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is enabling us to have the power. And this is maybe part of the particular siyata dishmaya that you see in people who started learning Torah later. Right? They say Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, when he came on a visit to Eretz Yisrael, and he saw yeshivas for people who started learning later in life, and he saw the progress that they made was simply not above nature, meaning they were able to catch up in so many things like that. So this might be one of the explanations for it, right? That once a person embarks on that track, so then you're getting the benefits from all of these future things. So this fits very much with the idea of Yaakov Avinu, who one of his midos is the midah of rachamim. Right? Rachamim, they say, has in it the word rechem, which means the womb, and machar, which means tomorrow. Right? It's the ability to be able to move on in the future and to be able to redo or undo things from the past that might be holding you back. Okay, that's there. Now, an interesting question is if the idea, this I sort of done Segel asked, if the ability to do tshuva is based on this idea from the midas harachamim, Hashem has mercy on us and lets us undo something in the past because akiras haratzon, uprooting the desires like akiras hamaisa, but there's also something called toa ala rishonos, a person who regrets good things that he did. Okay, and there Chazal say that a person who regrets good things that he did doesn't get the reward for those good things that he did. Now, that gets tricky because if the dynamic to undo the past is based on midas harachamim shouldn't be enabling you to destroy, to detach you from good things that you did. So he explained the following. He said, in good things that you did, the good things continue to exist. It's not that it's as if you never did the mitzvah. The mitzvah exists, and it did, and it goes on in the world doing good things. But you've detached yourself from the ability to get reward from it by the fact that you wish you hadn't done it. It's something to be very careful with. Somebody once told me the following. He was a Talmud of the Yeshiva Ner Yisrael in America. And again, while many of the yeshivas in America already from early on allowed the guys to go to college at night school, Ner Yisrael had it a little bit more formalized, right? And they had things arranged, and transportation, and how the transfer of credits for yeshiva studies would go with the local universities and such. And this man said that the Rosh Yeshiva of Ruderman, that Sal told him, he said, people think that I have this set up with the college studies because I'm a compromiser. He said, no, I should get the expression here. He said, Ich bin der Emesse Frummer. He said, I do this out of true frumkeit. Why? He says, because I'm worried that a guy's going to spend years in yeshiva, and he's going to get married, and he's going to have kids, and now he's got to earn a parnasa. And he has no skills and tools to earn a parnasa that can enable him to support his family properly, and he's going to say, what an idiot I was spending all that time in yeshiva. And that's what's called Torah al Rishonos. And he may lose the schar for those years of learning. He said, that's what I'm afraid of. It's a fascinating outlook in terms of that. So let's try to see how what this Tzofnas, the Arugas Habosem teaches us can fit into all those different examples that we saw. What he's saying is that your ratzon now, after the fact, can be injected into what you did not so well back in the past, or something that you didn't manage to do. That Rosh Hashanah, right? That it wasn't that, I wish I had learned what I learned just today. I just learned something about Rosh Hashanah that would have transformed my davening. I wish I would have known that because my davening was totally out to lunch on Rosh Hashanah. You're able to infuse that davening with this which you have now, with the desire to do that now. Because Torah is above time and space. Things which are ruchni are limited by time and space. Right? We know that the Kodesh Kodashim, the measurements, would not hold what was in there. Right? It says the Aron Eno Min Amida. The Aron didn't take up space, even though it was there. Time also. All the examples we gave is it can be above. One of our yeshivas gave a beautiful example. He said, people of ruchnius, he says, time doesn't cause things to fade with them. He told us a story. There was a certain gadol, and he had a little boy. And a man came to see this Rav, and he had to wait in the waiting room for a bit. And meanwhile, the man's little boy was playing down on the ground with some toys. So he wanted to just talk to the little kid. What's your name? Moshe, did you have breakfast today? He said, yes, I did. He said, what did you have for breakfast? He said, bread. And then the door opened. It was time for him to go in. 30 years later, right, that Rav who had come to visit is now one of the elder Gedolim of the generation. The little boy is now a recognized young up-and-coming Rav, and they meet someplace. So the older Rav says to him, with what? He said, with butter. Meaning, the conversation just as it was, right from there. And there are many examples of this, of people who were separated in the war for long times, and they come and they restart their Torah discussion where they were. I haven't answered your question, and it goes there. So we do have this ability to go. Now, I spoke to a Talmud Chacham about this. He said it makes sense also. It's not just something like a Yom Tov, meaning anything which is based on Torah and mitzvahs, you can end up, so to speak, being meshapetz. You can fix it up some, because there are events in life that sometimes they're really one-time events, but something messed you up a bit. Okay, whatever, it was your wedding, and you suddenly realized you forgot to invite somebody. You're standing under the chuppah, and that's all you can think about is, I didn't invite him. And what am I going to tell him? What am I going to do? Next thing you know, you're breaking the glass. People are jumping up and down. I was not paying attention at my own chuppah, right? Such things definitely do happen. And many things like that. So if it's a thing of Kedusha, if it's a thing of Torah, so then you're able to go back. Now, obviously, the reason I said this is dynamite is for two things. Number one, it seems to go against all the powerful musar that we get sometimes is, if you don't do this properly now, it will never come back. as a big motivator to really pay attention and do it right now. And here you say, oh, you take the rug out from that because people say, all right, I can fix it up later. It's obviously much harder. It's obviously much more difficult. It's obviously not the same thing. Okay, that's there. Also, a person shouldn't make this like a habit, saying, okay, let me think back, Rosh Hashanah in 1983, yeah, that was a bad one, let me fix that one up. You know, it's not meant, it's meant something really that kind of comes spontaneously from the heart, right? And HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes that and it goes there. Similarly, I saw Rachmastrivka Rebbe brought down that what Yaakov Avinu accomplished is for those of us who don't have a Beis HaMikdash, meaning that when you daven, you're supposed to imagine that you're in the Beis HaMikdash. Right? That's what they bring down. Mishnah Berurah brings it down, really, even like by the Kodesh Kodashim or something, that it's not just pointing your nose in the right direction. You're supposed to imagine that you're there. And then we know that there's a Beis HaMikdash Shel Mala, right, which corresponds to the Beis HaMikdash Shel Mata. So he says a person can, by davening in the right way, and we know that our tefillas travel, right? It says Yerushalayim is called Tel Talpios, Tel Shekol HaTefillos, right? That all the tefillas go there. Also Maras HaMachpelah, I don't know exactly the route, how it goes. It says tefillas go through Maras HaMachpelah, also on the way up. So a person is able to connect to those things, even from a distance, right? This is what Yaakov Avinu enabled us to do. And it's a tremendous midah of rachamim, right? Rachamim, again, having that idea of rechem, of machar, of tomorrow, is that which stops a person from giving up hope, right? And the sense that a person has that I missed something and it can't come back, right? That is against the whole idea that we have, the very concept of tshuva, right? The very concept of this idea that what we do in the future even influences things that came back. Now, one other complication to knit up here, the Sfas Emes brings, he says, wait a second. That beautiful idea that Hashem looks and says, you see, Bnei Yisrael in the future, going to receive the Torah, I'm going to take them out of Mitzrayim. Right? You're going to serve Hashem happily after Yom Kippur, therefore I'm going to forgive you on Yom Kippur. Okay, but Hashem looks at my future, he's not always going to see wonderful things. Does Hashem look into my future and say, hey, right, 2 months from now you're going to do a big Avera and give me a smack? Right? So he says, no. That doesn't work that way. He says, what brings that from the Zohar Kodesh? But why? Shouldn't it be parallel? He says, no, absolutely not. He says, because the mitzvahs you do in the future are really an expression of who you are. Those are an expression of who you are. The averas you do in the future, that's an expression of who you're not. Right? They have nothing to do with you. Chazal say, Ein adam chote elim ken nichnas bo ruach shtus. A person sins only because a spirit of what you call like temporary insanity takes over him. That's when you were not you. Therefore, that future has nothing to do with you now. But the mitzvahs that you do, that's an expression of who you are, which is there, and therefore they're part of you. So, this is a gift to let people realize that that impenetrable barrier of time that sometimes makes us so sad, right? We have to realize that there are many ways in which it can be breached, bridged, transformed, and the main thing is to keep on doing and wanting the best we can where we are, and that'll repair the things that are there. It's also, they say sometimes, the tefillah at the end of the year can fix up the tefillahs from, right, that were there before, because sometimes you really get it on that last tefillah of the year, right? And you say, I wish I would have thought of it like this, all those. So it goes back there, and it fixes them up. So we are more powerful than we think. Wishing everyone a wonderful week.